General Hospital spoilers reveal that the newest adjustment unfolding across Port Charles is not merely a shift in circumstance, but a fundamental fracture in the emotional architecture between Willow and Drew, one that deepens with every breath Drew takes as flashes of memory return, each recollection carving through the fragile illusion Willow has tried so desperately to maintain. And within this volatile atmosphere, the truth that she was the one who pulled the trigger hangs, heavier than any secret she has ever carried. It begins quietly, almost unnoticeably, with Drew waking in a haze and believing his disorientation is nothing more than the aftermath of trauma. But as his equilibrium returns, and his mind stitches together the fragments of a night he was never meant to remember, the adjustment becomes undeniable. A seismic alteration in how he sees Willow and how she sees herself. The weight of recognition settles in his eyes, and Willow feels it before he says anything. The shift in the air around him revealing everything she feared would surface, because the guilt she has buried beneath layers of rationalization has begun to bleed through, and Drew is no longer the man who trusted her blindly, but a man betrayed in a way that cuts so deeply it reshapes the entire structure of their marriage. The new adjustment is not simply Drew's awakening, but the collapse of Willow's defenses, the unraveling of a lie that has defined her every step, and as Drew's memories sharpen, he becomes the living proof that the facade she constructed is crumbling. Willow realizes that no amount of remorse can erase the moment she squeezed the trigger, and now that Drew remembers, every attempt she makes to justify her actions feels hollow, like she is speaking into a void where forgiveness cannot survive. This adjustment, that emotional recalibration, forced upon them, places them in opposite corners of a battlefield they never intended to enter, and the tension thickens until even their silence becomes a form of accusation. Willow senses that her future with Drew is dissolving, not through anger alone, but through the dawning understanding that some betrayals create wounds that cannot be closed, that trust shattered by violence can never return to its original shape. And as this internal and external shift grows more pronounced, another adjustment begins quietly forming beneath the destruction. The gravitational pull between Willow and Chase, something she ignored for months, but now rises from the shadows with a clarity she can no longer dismiss. The more Drew remembers, the further Willow drifts from him, and the further she drifts, the more her heart reorients itself toward the one person whose presence has always steadied her. In moments of fear and confusion, the adjustment is not about impulsiveness or longing alone. It is an echo of an unfinished love that neither time nor circumstance managed to silence. Chase senses the shift too, even before Willow acknowledges it, and though he tries to remain loyal to his current commitments, his mind keeps circling back to her, keeping track of every tremor in her voice and every attempt she makes to pretend she is not breaking apart. The new adjustment is a living thing, an evolving force that pushes them toward one another, even as their lives pull them in opposite directions, and everyone around them feels the shift, including Drew, who sees the truth forming behind Willow's guilt and knows that Chase's presence in her orbit is not an accident but an inevitability. Drew's recollection of the shooting becomes the catalyst for everything else, the moment that transforms Willow from devoted partner to someone he no longer recognizes. And this transformation forces her to confront a loneliness she tried to numb by clinging to a marriage that was already weakening beneath the weight of secrets. The adjustment becomes a cycle, Drew remembering, Willow withdrawing, Chase sensing, Brooklyn fearing, Michael judging, and the entire delicate structure of their intersecting relationships trembling under the pressure. Willow's guilt morphs into a sense of emotional exile, and exile is the space where old affections resurrect themselves. Chase becomes the mirror she avoids but cannot escape, the reminder of who she used to be before the lies layered themselves across her soul. And as Drew grows more haunted by the memory of Willow standing over him with the syringe and the gun, she grows more haunted by the memory of Chase being the one person who saw her clearly, long before the darkness took root. What makes this adjustment so powerful is not simply that it pushes Willow and Chase together, but that it reveals the truth neither of them wanted to admit. Willow never stopped loving Chase, and Chase never extinguished the part of himself that loved her, even when he tried to build a future somewhere else. As Drew's recovery sharpens into anger and the betrayal becomes a narrative, He cannot imagine forgiving. Willow begins to understand that clinging to a dying marriage is doing nothing but prolonging the inevitable collapse. Her choices have set in motion a chain reaction she can no longer control, and the adjustment evolves from internal tension into external consequence. The hospital corridors become silent judges. Michael's suspicion becomes a warning siren. Brooke Lynn's insecurities become tremors that shake her marriage with Chase. And through all of this, Willow is forced to confront the possibility that the person she shot is not merely the man she married, but the symbol of a life she no longer belongs to. Chase becomes the adjustment that feels like returning to a truth she abandoned. And the more Drew confronts her with his regained memories, the more she feels the emotional distance between them widening into an uncrossable divide. This adjustment is cruel in its timing and merciless in its clarity, because it does not simply expose what Willow did, it exposes who she has become. Drew's voice may be laced with betrayal, but Willow's silence carries the deeper confession. The love sustaining their marriage died long before the shot was fired, and the memory returning to Drew merely forces the truth into the light. As the tension compounds and the consequences tighten around her life like a closing fist, Willow begins to question whether her future lies in rebuilding something broken or stepping into something that has been waiting for her all along. Chase becomes the embodiment of that unanswered question, and the adjustment becomes the prophecy of what comes next. Every step Willow takes away from Drew is a step toward the emotional territory she once shared with Chase, and as the city watches the fallout unfold, the adjustment grows impossible to ignore. The truth is no longer about the shooting alone. It is about the path Willow is being pushed onto, a path shaped by guilt, grief, and the rebirth of a love she thought she had buried. And in that realization lies the final, irreversible adjustment. The story is shifting. The relationships are rearranging, and Chase and Willow are being drawn back into each other's gravity not as a choice, but as the inevitable consequence of everything breaking apart. There is a new adjustment unfolding in Port Charles, one that does not rive with warning or logic but erupts from the deepest fractures in the lives of those who believed they still had control over their choices. It begins with Willow, whose carefully constructed world has been eroding ever since the moment she raised the syringe and shot the man she promised to love. For days she has felt the walls closing in, the pressure of guilt tightening around her chest like a band she cannot loosen, and the fear that Drew's silence is not forgiveness, but the quiet before his memory awakens and destroys everything she has tried to hide. When she begins to sense that the truth is clawing its way to the surface, she turns instinctively toward the one person who once grounded her, the one presence whose stability felt like safety long before her life became drenched in secrets and blood. Chase becomes her refuge again, not because she planned it, not because she wants to betray another man, but because something inside her is shattering, and in the breaking, she seeks the comfort of someone who once felt like home. This adjustment begins subtly, with glances that linger too long, with the way Chase's voice softens when she is near, with the tension between them tightening every time they find themselves alone. Chase has tried to be loyal to Brooke Lynn, to honor the commitments he made, but the moment Willow enters the room, something primal inside him reacts, remembering the intimacy they once shared, the closeness he never fully replaced. He senses the fear inside her, the exhaustion, the emotional decay, and something in him responds before he can rationalize or resist. He reaches for her in small ways, a touch on her shoulder, a moment of stillness after she trembles, a silent acknowledgement that he sees the pain she is burying. And the more Drew withdraws into suspicion, the more Willow drifts into Chase's gravitational pull. Neither admits it, but both feel the adjustment taking shape, like an invisible force pushing them toward a moment they cannot escape. The night it happens, it is not planned. Willow arrives at Chase's door in a storm of panic and shame, her heart pounding with the knowledge that Drew's memories are resurfacing, that everything she built is collapsing, that the lie she committed has started to rot from within. Chase recognizes the look in her eyes before she even speaks, the way her breath shakes, the way her composure fractures with a desperation she no longer tries to hide. When she steps into his arms, it is not lust that drives her, but the unbearable need to feel alive, to feel seen, to feel like she is more than the monster she fears she is becoming. Chase tries to steady her, but when her fingers tighten against his skin, something inside him breaks to the part of him that tried to bury his love for her, the part that told himself he had moved on. The adjustment that has been building between them ignites, and their restraint evaporates. The moment they fall into bed is explosive, not chaotic but inevitable. The culmination of months of buried emotion and unresolved longing. Their bodies fit together with a familiarity that terrifies and thrills them both. A raw and hungry desperation that comes from two people who have denied themselves the truth for far too long. Willow feels the weight of everything she has lost, everything she has destroyed, and Chase becomes the only place her trembling heart knows to run. Chase feels the return of something he thought he had buried forever, something deeper than desire, something that whispers that despite everything, he has never stopped loving her. Their connection is overwhelming, too hard, too fast, too consuming, and in the heat of the moment, they forget the consequences waiting on the other side of their passion. But fate, cruel and merciless, has chosen this night to deliver another adjustment, one that will alter the course of their lives in a way none of them can reverse. Because Drew, restless and agitated by the flickers of memory stabbing through his mind, wanders through the corridors of his home in search of answers he is no longer willing to ignore. His recollections come in violent flashes, the cold sting of a needle, the shadowy outline of Willow holding the syringe, the betrayal etched in her face. The memory is incomplete, but powerful enough to propel him forward, desperate to confront the truth. His feet carry him toward the guest room, driven by instinct more than thought, and as he nears the door, he hears sounds soft, desperate, intimate. At first, he does not understand, but when realization dawns, it hits him with the force of a collapsing world. And then he sees it. The moment Drew's eyes fall on Willow and Chase tangled together, moving in the harsh rhythm of passion and need, the world stops. His breath leaves him in a single violent exhale. His heart fractures with a force he cannot contain. And the betrayal he feels is so profound it steals every ounce of strength from his body. Willow's hair spills across Chase's chest, her skin glowing with desire, her hands gripping him with a familiarity Drew has not felt in months. Chase's mouth finds her neck with a hunger that speaks of a love never fully extinguished, and Willow's body responds with a desperation that makes Drew feel like he has been erased, replaced, destroyed. The betrayal is not abstract, it is living, breathing, moaning, moving. It is personal in a way that no memory of being shot could ever compare to. Betrayal of the heart always cuts deeper than betrayal of the flesh. The adjustment that occurs inside Drew in that instant is monstrous. His grief mutates into fury, his shock into vengeance, his heartbreak into something darker and more unhinged. He steps back from the doorway as if burned, his hands shaking, his vision blurring with rage so thick it feels like poison spreading through his veins. Every lie Willow told him, every touch that felt distant, every moment she withdrew, every flash of guilt he sensed, everything aligns in a single horrifying revelation. She did not simply betray him with violence, she betrayed him with love. She gave to Chase what she refused to give to him, and now he sees the truth he tried so desperately to deny. This is the new adjustment, the one that transforms Drew into a man driven by the need to reclaim power, to expose the truth, to make them pay not only for the shooting, but for the humiliation he just witnessed. Willow, lost in the ecstasy of the moment, does not realize the storm she has unleashed. Chase, equally unaware, holds her with a tenderness that only sharpens the knife twisting in Drew's chest. When Willow finally senses movement, when instinct tells her something is wrong, it is already too late. Drew is gone from the doorway, walking away with a slow, deadly quiet that promises devastation. The adjustment has begun. It shifts the balance of power, reshapes alliances, redefines love, and births a fury that will not be contained. Willow will feel it when she wakes beside Chase, when the guilt crashes into her like a tidal wave, when she realizes the cost of giving in to desire. Chase will feel it when he sees the devastation in her eyes and understands the consequences that await them both. And Drew will become something new, something hardened, something capable of turning the pain he carries into a weapon sharp enough to cut through every life entangled in this betrayal. The adjustment will not end here. It will grow, it will twist, it will destroy. and nothing in Port Charles will ever be the same again. There's a new adjustment forming in Willow's life, one so quiet and deadly that she almost misses the signs at first. The nausea that comes at dawn, the dizziness that swells with every emotional shock, the trembling in her hands that refuses to fade. At first she blames it on guilt, on stress, on the suffocating weight of the lies she carries. But when the truth finally clicks into place, it hits her with a force that bends her entire world out of shape. She is pregnant. The realization slides through her like ice, numbing everything, freezing her breath, hollowing her chest with a terror she cannot name. It should be a moment of joy, of hope, of renewal. But instead it is the beginning of a new nightmare because she has no idea who the father is. The timing is cruel, almost mocking, a reminder that the universe has a twisted sense of humor and a merciless hand. The adjustment begins inside her mind with a single whisper of fear, then grows into a storm. If the child is Drew's, it ties her forever to the man she shot, the man whose forgiveness she will never earn, the man whose memories have resurfaced with a vengeance so sharp it cuts through every breath she takes. If the child is Chase's, then the consequences multiply in all directions, destroying his marriage, destroying Drew completely, destroying whatever fragile future she imagined she might still salvage. And as the reality of her situation settles over her, Willow feels the ground beneath her shifting, sinking, breaking apart. This pregnancy is not just a complication. It is the epicenter of a new adjustment that threatens to reshape the lives of everyone connected to her. The more Willow tries to think, the more the fear coils tighter around her ribs. Images flash in her mind, Chase's hands gripping her with a desperation that mirrored her own. Drew's devastated face when he saw them together. The tangled sheets that now feel like evidence of her downfall. She remembers Chase's breath against her skin, the way her body responded without restraint, the hunger that made her forget the consequences. She remembers Drew's eyes darkening with betrayal, the moment he understood he was no longer part of her heart. Each memory becomes a blade, carving deeper into her conscience, fueling a new obsession, an obsession with the truth, an obsession with the unknown, an obsession with what this child will mean. She tries to calculate dates, tries to recall the exact nights, tries to rationalize biology as if numbers could save her from the chaos she created. But nothing lines up cleanly. Nothing offers clarity. Instead, every possibility opens a new door to disaster. If it is Drew's child, he might use it to chain her to a life she no longer belongs to. If it is Chase's child, the scandal will explode through Port Charles like wildfire, consuming every relationship in its path. And worst of all, Willow knows that whichever man is the father, the other will be destroyed by the revelation. This uncertainty becomes a new psychological torment, a shadow that clings to Willow with relentless hunger. She begins to obsess over signs, symptoms, dreams, the way her heart reacts when she thinks of each man. She tries to convince herself that biology will favor the man she loves more. But the truth is she no longer knows what she feels. Her guilt for Drew, her longing for Chase, her fear of losing her children, her terror of being exposed, everything blends into a suffocating fog that presses against her skull, until she feels like she is losing her mind. The adjustment grows sharper, more violent, feeding on every secret she hides and every mistake she has tried to bury. The pregnancy becomes a mirror she cannot escape. It shows her not who she is, but who she has become, a woman trapped between two lives, to betrayals, to futures, none of which offer salvation. And as the days pass, Willow begins to notice another shift, something darker. She becomes hyper-aware of every sensation in her body, convinced each flutter, each ache, each moment of silence is a sign pointing toward one man or the other. Her imagination spirals into obsession. She wonders if the child will inherit Chase's eyes or Drew's smile, if the truth will reveal itself through a single glance or a single heartbeat. The not knowing becomes a torment more intense than any physical pain she has ever endured. This new adjustment, the psychological descent, begins to consume her nights. She wakes in cold sweats, heart pounding, convinced she feels the child choosing its father inside her. She dreams of Drew's fury swallowing her whole, of Chase's heartbreak turning to hatred, of Brooke Lynn's world collapsing, of Michael's judgment crushing whatever strength she has left. She dreams of standing in the center of a storm holding a child whose face shifts again and again, morphing from Drew to Chase, Chase to Drew, until she screams herself awake. Each dream reinforces a truth she cannot outrun. No matter who the father is, she will lose something she cannot replace. And as Willow spirals deeper into this new emotional abyss, another adjustment forms in the background, subtle but unstoppable. Drew begins watching her more closely, sensing her fear and mistaking it for guilt. Chase begins feeling a pull he cannot explain, as if some unseen force is drawing him back toward her. Brooklyn grows suspicious, uneasy, fragile. The city hums with tension, its gossip engines trembling on the edge of ignition. Everything is shifting, rearranging itself around the secret growing inside Willow's body. She knows that once the truth comes out, there will be no turning back. She knows the child she carries is not simply a life, it is a consequence, a weapon, a revelation, and a punishment. It is the embodiment of everything she has done, everything she has broken, everything she has hidden. And in the darkest corners of her mind, she fears the adjustment has already begun shaping the future, carving a path none of them can escape. Because no matter who the father is, the child will ruin something. And Willow knows that the moment the truth is revealed, nothing in Port Charles, nothing inside her will ever be the same again.